Welcome back into One Winning Pod, where we will be discussing a Ravens victory over longtime rival. It's been a little bit of a winding rivalry because it's come in and out, but a rival nonetheless in the Tennessee Titans. Across the pond, erased some bad memories of the previous time the Ravens were there. Got the win, but definitely came out with some questions. Still some stuff that this team needs to work on. Whether or not this win was a dominant win can certainly be debated. So we're going to talk about this game. And so I guess we'll just start off right there. Chris, Alec, how'd you feel about the win?
I tell you, my initial thing is, we won, so that's great because I was convinced we were cursed from the 2017 game, that abysmal loss to the Jags. I feel like after this game, I've just concluded, why aren't teams going a week before? Because apparently the Ravens flew in on a Friday last time, which is a terrible idea, and this time they flew a week in advance and they looked fine. And I know the Bills last week tried to fly on a Friday evening to London on the day. It seems like, is it really that easy? It's like that's the correlation. Like, you lose if you fly on a Friday instead of the week before. And why aren't teams doing this? I just don't understand.
Yeah, it's clear to me, Chris, that going early makes the most sense. I mean, shoot, we've done vacations before, right? Like if you ever have a vacation across time zones, particularly going in that direction, the first day is difficult. The second day, it's super obvious. Yeah. I feel like it has to be a cost thing. These Scrooges, NFL owners, keeping all their shingles and not wanting to pony it up. It's ridiculous. I think it's a clear advantage. And even though there's no quote unquote data, it's just logical in my opinion. I don't think there's distractions from that. There's plenty of distractions at home. I think it's a good team building opportunity. Like the guys are saying, it's the first time since mini camp or whatever that they've been all living in the hotel and kind of having that kind of time together. And it's always tough on the families, but I think away games are in general tough. And I think it's just a way to get a dub, and it's a business trip. You know what I mean? I hear they get per diem. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think that is the winning strategy. And I think now the Ravens won, Harbaugh's going to be all in on this. In the future, always wanting to do that. But I think it's also just obvious, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's the winning play. That's what happened last week too. The team that came in early smoked. So I think people are going to start seeing that's the way to go. But shoot, man, win's a win. Wasn't the prettiest, but I think one of the biggest takeaways I had from this game is the Ravens kind of did a little bit of a reset, and they're like, you know what, we're having trouble not getting out of our own way. Let's take 3 points. Let's not give them a turnover. Let's not give them momentum, and win that, make them beat us. And I don't love that philosophy in general, but I think when you're playing an opponent that you feel like you should win, it's not a bad choice. I think we talked about these little bets. You don't want to make big bets when you feel like you're the better team. I thought that was not the worst approach, and that's why we saw Tucker hit 6 field goals. It makes me cringe on 4th and 1, or when you're inside the 5, to not go for it. It goes against every thing in my soul, but in the way I was also there for it. I actually, that too was what I would do. Cause I was I'm sick and tired of losing games we should win. And I'm not trusting, particularly the offensive line, to make these things easy for us. And you know what? Fine. Take the 3. I became one of those boomer fans. I was all for it.
I mean, I think it's a good point though. If we want to go kind of into the offense a little bit first, I think, to me, I feel like it kind of highlights a problem we've probably had for a couple of weeks now, and we've yet to kind of find the solution for it. But the offensive line, particularly in these sort of 4th and short sort of situations, I feel like in years past we could trust the Greg Roman offense to convert on those situations. I feel like right now we really can't, and I think it's pronounced particularly in the red zone. And I think it's just because of the lack of options we have down there, right? It's just the offensive line really can't get the push. Gus Edwards, I think, can kind of get it, but still, I think there were too many negative plays in those situations. We don't have a Dobbins sort of guy. Justice Hill is great in certain situations. I don't think that's one that he's particularly great in. But I think the bigger part, honestly, is just from the passing perspective, we really just don't have any weapons in the red zone right now. And I feel like it's really telling. particularly against the Titans. Their defensive line really, really stout. I think they did a great job. Obviously, I think Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best interior players in the league. A little bit questionable, maybe a little iffy in terms of play style, I think, for some Ravens fans. But I mean, without a doubt, he's one of the better players in the league, I think. And Titans did a great job of bottling us up, and it just made us one dimensional in the red zone. And Monken's got to figure it out.
Yeah, the offense. I'm really interested to see if we see some new wrinkles and some new spark post bye week. It's just starting to feel more and more like the things that we're seeing that are an issue with this offense probably aren't going to be corrected until then. And it's crazy. It's same year, same thing. We've had other years before where coming into the season, in the offseason, we've been so hyped about the wide receiver room. It was 2010, I think, when we had Mason and Bolden in there. We traded for Hushmanzada. We had Dante Stallworth. We're looking at this. LJ Smith there to go with Todd Heap. And we're like, man, this is such a stacked receiving core. And obviously, we remember what happened there in the postseason. We talk about the story after that postseason was this group's too slow. We got no speed. That's why they drafted Torrey Smith. That group wasn't good enough to get the Ravens where we needed to go. 2018, we brought in Crabtree and Brown and Snead. That was supposed to revitalize the receiving room. That was going to be the best group of receivers that Joe Flacco had ever had, and it ended up being very average at best, right? And I'm not saying that this group can't be what we were projecting them to be, but the reality is, I think we can all agree, this just isn't what we were expecting yet coming into the season. It's kind of been the worst case. Maybe not the worst case, because I guess the worst case would include Zay Flowers being, struggling in his transition to the NFL, and he's clearly hasn't. But Odell and Bateman have been struggling with their injuries. Aguilar has been Aguilar, I think, solid, but will still have a drop every now and again, and is a dependable guy, but isn't going to be that big play guy you can go to. Andrews being Andrews, but the tight ends outside of him being non-existent. Pass catchers, at some point, we're going to need to see a step up from someone outside of Zay and Andrews, because just right now, like you're saying, when the run game is not going as well as we want it to outside of Lamar, the pass catching options right now are just way too limited for guys for Lamar to have trust in.
Yeah, it's frankly a bit wild. I feel like, week 1, week 2, we were seeing a lot of good things. Like, like Odell could be, the deep threat, or Bateman could be the intermediate guy. And I feel like as of late, we've really just haven't seen that sort of balance that we did in the first couple of weeks. Obviously, defenses will adjust. And I think anybody who kind of went in saying, thinking that week 1 would be replicated every week, I mean, clearly, you gotta wait for for such an assessment. But still, yeah, I totally agree with you, man. I think right now we're really struggling just to find another target in those situations, and yeah, I think it's just becoming more pronounced, especially in these red zone targets. Everything's more compressed. The guys that we do rely on, are just harder to get the ball in those compressed areas. Andrews is one too. Like, I don't know. I haven't really figured out. Like, I clearly think he's healthy, but I do think it feels like there's almost an element of like not looking his way as much. Now, obviously, I understand that from wanting to be able to spread the ball around. We don't need to have a Roman offense where it's like, the running backs, Lamar and Andrews, like that's your option, right? Getting Zay more involved is good. I think we've been able to do it and not like have to force feed him as much. I think that's a good thing. But I do feel like there's some situations where, like, maybe there could be an opportunity to kind of scheme Andrews open, get him a little bit more of a threat in there. But again, I feel like, it's coming back down to right now, it's just offensive line, I think, is a challenge. I feel like we've been seeing him block a lot more than usual. And in that situation, we got to have some other guys step up. And right now, it feels like for Odell, he's got to get healthy. For Bateman, feel like he's got to get his mind right. He's got to stack some wins. I think he's in a little bit of trouble right now, just being behind the 8 ball, kind of trying really hard to make a play, and unfortunately just not having a lot of luck his way at this point. But bye week reset, yeah, it feels like that's probably something on there to like look at the scheme, figure out, okay, what can we change, what do we like, and get guys ready, get them healthy. So
Yeah, he's definitely potentially pressing, and I think it's really important for him and or Odell to get into a little bit of a groove. We saw that explosive play from Odell earlier in the game. He even mentioned to reporters he felt like he maybe came back a week too soon. He wasn't quite ready from that injury. And hopefully he's continuing to get right and able to, improve in this offense. I still am a believer. I thought lackluster effort in the end zone that last week, maybe that was part of, the reason. I think he still has juice. Like, I really do. I just think he's been having some setbacks this year. And to me, if he's able to get right by end of year and playoffs, like, that's really all that matters. But this is, it's been, I think, frustrating for him. And he kind of has talked about that. And then Bate, man, it's like, it's so painful. I think he's in his head now. I think the year started off with him cooking, but not quite getting the targets. And I think that's tough on him mentally because, he's also coming back. And now he's not cooking as much, but he's getting the target. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like this like weird problem. But I hope that they'll be able to figure it out. I still kind of believe in his ability. Looking, we talked about the offensive line being tricky right now, and kind of having issues with the offensive line and getting pushed. I'm also kind of concerned that the way the offensive line is playing and also with the scheme, that Gus is not quite the right running back for it. And I think that's why we're seeing 16 carries for 41 yards in this game. I think he's one of those guys that I think by like stride 6, 7, like that's a great running back. He's probably the best running back we got, but he's not getting the opportunity to get those strides in because the holes aren't there. And, maybe he's able to, go forward for a yard or two, but he's like not getting any initial help. And, the plays he does, that's great. But I think he lacks the little bit of boost to get to the edge or kind of create at this point. And then you got, I think Justice, I feel like every time Justice touches the ball, there's a little bit more, it's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more electric. And I think at this point, that's what the offense needs a little bit more of. So I'm kind of hoping to see a flip in the carries, maybe even some Mitchell action. He has his first NFL action, but it was all special teams. And that guy, man, great gunner. Did you see that? He was right there when the fumble happened. And then second punt, he whiffed on the tackle. Hate to see it, but he was there. He was ready to like pummel the guy. And I think that's huge. Like if he doesn't, and missed that tackle, we're like accolading him. And I think it's important he was there because they redirected him and et cetera. But like, I think he might be a solid gunner, and that might be how he continues to get game day activations. And I hope that he gains the trust to get some offensive touches because I think he could bring some dynamic thing to the running game. But I'm a little worried about Gus. I love Gus. I don't know if the injury slowed him down, age, or just the scheme, but I worry going forward that he's not quite the right back. And I'm curious, you guys have similar concerns?
I mean, here's the thing. I agree with what you're saying with Gus. I just don't think that Justice Hill alleviates all the issues. I think that he alleviates some, but then I think he has his issues as well. We've seen the ball security has been an issue this year, and that's something that we really can't. Ideally, you're not going to have that going forward, right? You're not going to feel comfortable with him making a play in a big game if he doesn't show going forward that that's not going to be an issue, right? I also feel that we just haven't seen enough of him. I think something that really helps him is he's coming in situations that are advantageous to his skill sets, right? They're coming in situations where the defense is biting on a Lamar sneak. He's coming in situations where the defense is spread out, which helps with his speed. I think that Gus is just inevitably, with his running style and with his ability to take as many carries as he can, is the guy that's going to get the first nod. But I agree that right now the offensive line is not leading us to see the best version of Gus that we can. Some of it's on him, but also we're just not seeing the holes that we've seen in the past couple of seasons from this group. The running back situation right now is unideal. I don't have all the answers. I am certainly open to seeing a game where Justice Hill gets double-digit carries just to see if that would give this offense a different look. He did have 11 against Cincinnati, 41 yards, 3.7 for carry, but his other games, we're not seeing him get there. So, yeah, I will say that this coming week is probably not the week to do it against Detroit, but after the bye, if you want to give that a spin, see if that changes anything, sure. Because honestly, right now, what's going on just isn't getting it done.
Yeah, I guess my only thoughts about Gus is like 1 week's definitely not enough to kind of write him off. And yeah, just knowing the kind of the depth behind him, it's not like we could just say like put Justice in and bench him. Like he's got to have carries, and I think he can still be effective in a lot of those carries. I do think I am excited for Mitchell though, because I think him and Hill bring a lot of speed to be able to get to these outside runs, a little bit more shifty in the open field. I think they add more in the passing game as well. I thought there was one play this game against the Titans where I think Gus was trying to catch a screen or something, but that play ended up not going anywhere. We know it's not really a strength of his game. He brought a little bit in 2020, I believe, kind of showed a little bit of that, but never really kind of progressed more than there. So, I mean, I do think Hill and Mitchell probably provide a little bit more of that to that offense. And that is something, honestly, I think even, looking back at the first like 6 weeks of the season, we've had a little bit more success than we have in the Greg Roman offense, particularly around getting running backs involved. We like to do a lot more screens, both to the wide receivers and the running backs, and these little, dump off passes in the flat. So it could happen. But the other thing I kind of take away too, again, like Titans did a heck of a job, particularly in short yardage situations. Like they've got a really good front. So I wouldn't totally say it's on our offensive line. It's enough where I'm a little concerned, but also I think, you look around the league, I think there are plenty of offensive linemen that are not doing as well as the Ravens right now. So kind of have to temper expectations a little bit, but in any case, I think one other thing I did want to talk about though, is just more on Zay. I kind of wanted to mention like we finally got his first touchdown. I thought that was a pretty incredible adjustment by Lamar, being able to buy extra time in the pocket and kind of do this little sidearm flip, be able to get to Zay and get his touchdown. And it was a great time. Obviously, with 6 field goals, you think 24, you're like, oh yeah, I've scored 3 touchdowns. Not the case at all. So really, that was the difference in this game.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing us back to a positive note. I mean, this is a win. Let's but we're starting off with a lot of complaints. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about what's going well. What's going well is Zay Flowers. Every game this year, he's been an impact guy. Right now, of course, he's had some mistakes. He's had a couple drops against Pittsburgh that I'm sure he'd love to have had back. But look, this guy is continuing to do things week in and week out that are positives for this offense. 6 catches for 50 yards on 8 targets. That touchdown was great. I mean, Lamar had to extend the play. Great play by him. I think that Lamar has been even better this year, which is saying something, with making plays happen with his feet, extending it, rolling out to his right or left. He had a play, I think it was against Cincinnati too, that was very similar. He rolled to his left and was able to get his stance down and have a big completion. It's a great play, and it really goes to show why the Ravens drafted him, right? That touchdown doesn't happen if Zay doesn't have those instincts of what to do as the play broke down, how to continue going around the field and getting open. And it was an excellent play by him. He made some other plays this game, but that play in particular, with it being a touchdown in this game where the Ravens are just getting field goals, excellent play for Zay to have his first touchdown as a Raven. Hopefully, and I think all signs are pointing to the first of many.
I loved the olive comment. Did you guys hear about this? The olive comment from Mr. Harbaugh?
Yeah.
He was like, you got an olive jar, you flip it over, nothing comes out. You got to get one out, and when they all start pouring out. So this was his first olive. Love that for him. Yeah, I enjoyed the touchdown celebration. He called it earlier in the week. He was going to do like a flower girl situation, and maybe it'll become his motif now that the olives are going to keep coming, right? So I thought it was great. I thought it was good improv, and the master though of improv, Mark Andrews, had another big game, long of 38 yards, 69 very nice yards on 4 catches, and there was some like really nice tight window, gotta have it catches that he made, and I think he might be maybe like the red zone stuff, kind of missing other than that like crazy catch over 3 defenders in the back of the end zone. But he's definitely gonna. I think he's gonna be fine. Like long term, we'll just have to. I think we're gonna have to figure it out. I think it's a trust thing, guys. Like I really do think they don't think Lamar is gonna have much time in the pocket. Field's condensed, not gonna find a guy. Somebody on one of the tackles is gonna lose contain, get sacked. Like I feel like that's their worry right now, and I mean they might not be wrong. So I really want to see something happen here with the. Because you keep one guy back to block, you keep Ricard back to block or guy, and then you only have 4 targets. It's just tough. I think it's going to be tough. So we'll see. And maybe one of the focuses is like don't have red zone like inside the 5 plays. Like try to score beforehand. Like they actually try to target those intermediate plays to get in the end zone instead. But yeah, we'll see.
I think flipping over the defense, for the most part, I think for 95% of the game, they did an excellent job. I think there was only 2 plays. I think, if I recall, the pass interference play a little bit later, and then that the big run from Henry, where he kind of broke loose and set that up. You take those 2 plays away, and I think the defense looks a lot better than where it ended up. But yeah, I mean, it was a very strong performance. I think both defensive line played great. I think Metabuke and Clowney both ended up with 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks apiece. Van Noy and Queen with the other 2. So I think we had 6 sacks. So Alec, you got your bold prediction. Congratulations.
All in one drive. Crazy.
all in one drive, right?
Against Willis.
Yeah, I think pretty much. I mean, the biggest thing I think going in this game, bottle up Henry, and aside from that one play, I think they did just that.
Oh, they definitely did, which is great to see. It's now 2 matchups in a row that they've done that. Obviously, they did that in the playoff game. Now, I mean, I think Henry's getting older, despite the kind of denialism I think we got from Titans fan Tim about it. I think Henry is starting to slow down. He looks still good. He's still a very good running back in this league, but he doesn't quite strike you as the King Henry of old. But look, anytime you can bottle up a player who's had that much success in this league, I don't care if they're slightly a step or 2 behind where they used to be. It's still an accomplishment. It's still a great job by this defense, which really has been stopping run games all year. So like you're saying, that's assignment number 1 when you play the Tennessee Titans is you stop Derrick Henry, you're going to stop their offense, because Ryan Tannehill was never really that guy, and he's certainly isn't this year. So credit to the defense. They did the job and really just made it easy for the offense. It would have been nice for this game to have stayed, a 2 touchdown lead, but that's the 2023 Ravens. We can't have big leads. So I guess it just is what it is there.
I think they get more conservative when they get ahead, and they try to like win the game by running out the clock instead of like getting a 3rd touchdown, which I think is questionable. I'm curious if that will change a bit. I want them to hit the gas a little bit harder in those situations. And I think that's what I've kind of noticed as well when talking about the offense. The defense, man, though, like you were saying, they stopped Henry. That one wildcat play, in my opinion, never should have happened, because Pierce had a huge game, and yeah, he sacked Tannehill, but I don't think it was dirty. I've talked to some people. They thought maybe, he could have rolled off sooner, but I've watched it in every angle they have, all 22, sideline, end zone, broadcast. And I'm just like, man, like, I feel like that's a football play. Like, I don't know. Like, I really don't know what he's supposed to do. It wasn't late by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think he belly flopped on him. It wasn't no like Saragusa thing. So I don't know. I thought that was a weak call. I think this was a game that was very heavily relegated. I think they had eyes on it because it was in London, and they wanted to like kind of show that. And it was tough. It was a tough game from a penalty standpoint. We had that defense pass interference on Williams, who was just attacking the ball, and I think made a good play on the ball. I don't think it was pass interference. And yeah, like that was the Pierce though one. Going back to that, that was on 3rd and 5, incomplete pass, should have been punted. It was deep in their own territory. 15 yards, kind of flips the field a bit, run that wildcat play, and then boom, they're in scoring position. So I thought that was really tough. And yeah, I didn't love that, but guys, 111 yards on 2 plays. They had 279 yards, not including penalty yards. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, I thought the defense overall was phenomenal.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, again, I don't think it was too surprising. It's same thing week in and week out, right? Every week this year to so far, the defense has played well enough for the Ravens to win the game. Just the offense, we just got to get some more consistency there. They got the guys to do it. The injuries to the offensive line and then the aging of some players on the offensive line isn't helping. But look, I think that there's time, and I think with the defense continuing to play like this, I'm sure that gives the offensive guys confidence too. It's like know that hey, we don't have to be perfect here. We don't need to score 35 points. We have a defense here that's going to keep us in the game. We just got to go and focus on doing our thing and not anything more. And I think eventually it's got to turn the corner. With Lamar Jackson as your quarterback, I imagine it will. But yeah, this defense, and it's still incredible. We say it every week. Going into the season, the secondary, man, it's so beat up. How is this unit going to keep teams in check, keep offenses in check? And it's just another week and another great performance here by this unit.
I mean, they're playing with a lot of swagger for sure. I mean, I think it starts with Rowe, but yeah, I mean, between Queen, between the guys on the defensive line, the new outside linebackers that have come in, Clowney and Van Noy, have been playing really great in their roles. And yeah, I mean, like you said, the secondary as well. It's like we just got Marlowe back last week, and I feel like another kind of underrated signing too, Darby. I feel like between Darby and Rock Yassin, Rock was supposed to be the guy. I think it was supposed to be Marlowe and Rock, and I feel like I don't really see him all that much. Now, I don't think that's really a talent problem, but I think that Darby's been so good, Stevens have been so good that they've gotten the majority of the snaps just based on who's available, right? And yeah, I mean, I think they've been playing pretty much as well as I think you could expect. There doesn't really seem to be a really big weak spot. I think honestly, right now the situation we're in is it's just safety depth, and I think that was obviously really telling after the ejection on Hamilton. I know we kind of had the soapboxing about the flags and everything. I think the flag was definitely warranted. Ejection seems very questionable. I think if you ask, the NFL subreddit, I think they're absolutely like, "Oh my God, he was targeting him. It was terrible. It was the worst thing I've ever seen." Other people, I think, would say, "Hey, I don't think he intended for, to be able to do that." I mean, it's Chris Moore, former Raven.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody wish ill will on Chris. So. But either way, with that happening, with Williams going down, it put some depth to the test, right? Geno Stone is really your only safety on the roster at that point. Yeah, I mean, they had to move some guys around. So you saw more of the corner plays, at least near the end of the game, once that happened.
I think that was interesting, and watching it back, he's tall. I think that's the thing. Going forward, he's gonna have to think about how he's goofy tall. Being 6'4", I think it's easier for him when he kind of leans into tackle, as anyone does. When they tackle, they kind of get a little low. They don't tackle upright. That he could do helmet to helmet, because that's getting right into that area. So I think it's something he has to keep in mind going forward. Because anyone who knows anything about Hamilton, he's not a dirty player. He's is really like, you know what I mean? He's just like, he feels like he almost shouldn't be playing football. You know what I mean? He's just like, he seems really like, I don't want to tackle. I just know I have to. Like, I don't know. Like, he just seems like a very like gentle soul otherwise. Very, I don't know. Like, he just doesn't strike me as
but
a
I mean,
guy who would
still, I mean,
target,
he's
right?
like,
Like,
he was our slot guy all last year and even part of this year, right? I mean, he's in the box, he's making tons of tackles. Like, none of
yeah,
them were, none of them were dirty, right? These were
right.
good
Yeah.
tackles. So.
There's no precedence for a dirty play from him, I think is what we're saying.
Yeah. And also the other thing too that's interesting. So, you lose Hammy, you go ahead and you lose Williams to a hammy, right? He has a hamstring issue. Stone's the only guy left. What do? They go to Stevens. All right. Like all pro corner Stevens, playing at like a super high level, according to Marlowe. He goes back and plays safety. And then Rock Ya-Sin, actually, I was surprised to see led snaps over Darby in this game when they made that switch. It's kind of an interesting fun fact. But yeah, like those two guys like came in a rotation. What an incredible roster construction by one EDC. Like I think that's something that needs to be said. They actually did give him a game ball after the game. They were like, EDC, like you made us have like resilience to losing two safeties and being down one and like being able to make this work. And honestly, guys, like I think he did a great job assembling a roster. We're going to talk about it soon. These outside linebackers they just brought on. This is one of the best rosters. We say it every year, but I feel like he keeps outdoing himself. And maybe he spent some future cap to do it, but I don't mind one bit because the cap is kind of crap. So like good for him. This roster is deep. It can sustain injuries, and I think it's going to be huge going down the line. We're seeing so many injuries this year, and just in general in the league. I think depth is becoming more important.
Without a doubt. It's been next man up already this early in the year, and yeah, you look at it and you're like, well, we've already suffered so many injuries. What more can be done? But I think, like you're saying, they do have more guys in the fold. We have depth pieces all over the place. Not just a secondary. We've talked last week about how Brent Urban has come in and he's been really solid and has added a dimension to this team, taking in the role of the long guy with the giant arms that can go in and get in the passing lane like Calais Campbell was able to do. And again, like I said, Brent Urban is not Calais Campbell, but he can do some of the things that Calais Campbell could be by just being big and disruptive, right? Malik Harrison has been making some plays the past couple of weeks, as we wait for the rookie to develop. He's come in and he's been able to step up and make some plays in certain packages. And of course, we're seeing Clowney step up, and he's been way more of an impact player than we thought. Vanoy had his sack, like you said. There's a lot of guys that we're seeing big things from this year on this defense already at all positions who we were not expecting to have the type of impact that they're having right now. And yet the defense is still performing at close to the best case scenario that we would have wanted, even if everyone was healthy.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely huge. One particular shout out to talking about a depth guy. I mean, just remember this guy was 7th round pick, actually released by the Ravens, and went to Texas to the Texans for a while. Ended up getting back onto the Ravens practice squad, making the roster. Geno Stone continues to just play at a really, really high level. Honestly, really, like you can't even say he's a backup free safety at this point. I mean, he's just a safety. Like he's going to be playing at either spot. I think he's played for Marcus and for Hamilton at this point, but had a big interception in this game as well. I think he leads the team, if I recall. And
yeah, he does.
I mean,
he's leading the league.
Leading the league.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Oh my god.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's another guy that has three. Maybe the other people have three, but he's a leader. He's a tied leader.
Yeah. I mean, just incredible. Just, I mean, like, like I hate to call him like an awesome role player because he's more than that. But I mean, obviously with the two guys ahead of him when they're healthy, like, those are who the Ravens want to have on the field. But I mean, Geno is one of those guys like, you love to have on your roster because you put him in at crucial spots and he's going to be able to make a play. And I feel like that's one thing. Like we've been really good with generating pressure, sacks, even with our outside linebackers being a little unhealthy. Um, I think we've got the inside linebacker play now. I think turnovers. I think are one thing that I think it come in bunches a little bit, but they're not as prevalent. I think in some of the Ravens teams of the past. But I think with the guy like Geno, it's like he's single-handedly changing games and making plays in crucial moments, and you definitely need more of that.
Let's talk about those outside linebackers. We had Clowney with 4 QB hits, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. Van Noy with a sack and a pass deflection. These guys are playing out of their minds. I thought Clowney was a really high motor player. He didn't have as many snaps, too. Maybe that's why. He actually had a lower snap count this week, which I think is great because you don't run him into the ground. But he's been playing really well, and it gives you some confidence. If they said always in the vicinity of coming back, sounds like Ojabo has a couple more weeks with this knee sprain and high ankle sprain situation going on. That maybe we'll have some more depth. It might happen, guys. Believe, and that's awesome. But it gives you a lot of confidence in these guys going forward. I thought they both had phenomenal games, and shoot, like the whole front seven was just excellent. I mean, I think Matt Abike made himself $10 million. I'm not even kidding in this game. I think he might have made himself $10 million in extra like guarantees or like a level bump into his money making. He has 4.5 sacks. It's top again, tied top for sacks. It's like this guy's like killing it, man. Like I'm over the moon about how well they're all playing.
I mean, he was a force. He was a force in this game, and that's saying something again among a group that played so well as a unit. For you to stand out in that, that says a lot. And look, I think we still want some more consistency from this guy, but when he is on his game, he is like, he reminds you of some of the greats that have played here inside. Sam Adams, Haloti Ngata. He's has that type of disruption when he's able to do that. And again, we're talking about how Henry did not have. Let's put it this way: Henry had a solid game, but he wasn't, didn't have a dominant one. Matabike was a huge part of that. An excellent game from him. I think it had to be one of his best ever as a Raven. He was just an absolute force all 4 quarters in that game.
Well, I think we can't leave the episode without talking special teams. Obviously, at the top, Justin Tucker's 6 for 6 on field goals. Another career day for Tucker. Nothing too crazy in terms of yardage. I think a lot of them were probably a little bit shorter than we anticipated after talking about all those red zone woes. But a couple other things. I tell you what, one guy who really stands out to me on like pretty much every coverage play that I ever see him on, Delshon Phillips is, holy crap! Like he is the new special team linebacker sort of like player who goes hard on every single special team snap that I see, and is just incredible. I don't know how many tackles he ended up with, but when I'm watching like coverages, I'm like, man, like where's 53? I want to see him. He's always guaranteed for a play.
Well, yeah, he was recovering that fumble, right? Like right place. Big play for him on the special teams. We've mentioned earlier the gunners, specifically Mitchell as gunner. And shoot, man, Duvernay, 70-yard punt return. Got run down by the punter, who has an 85 speed score in Madden. So not a slow punter. This guy's actually sneaky fast, which I thought was kind of hilarious. But good to see that he was able to find a crease and get going like that, even if he gets run down a little bit. And, get a little bit that swagger back. I think he's been having a little bit of trouble this year. I think it's harder than ever to return in the NFL with the way the rules are set up. And, Duvernay trying to find a way to continue his pedigree as a Pro Bowl returner.
I'm really interested to kind of see over the next couple of weeks if kind of going back to the offense for a little bit, but like if we see or if we don't see any sort of growth, from OBJ or Bateman, if that might be an opportunity with Mitchell coming back. I noticed he got some snaps as kick returner instead of Duvernay. I'm wondering if that opens the door to kind of possibly using Duvernay a little bit more on the offense. Maybe keep him at, maybe just for punt returns. Maybe give him a little bit more of a role. Honestly, like around snap counts, I'd probably say around Aguilar, something like that. But I'm wondering if he might be a guy you want to go to, considering last year. I mean, he was pretty good last year, especially the first couple of weeks of the season. I think he was very productive in the Roman offense. He might be a guy who just consider. See if you can throw him out in a couple things. I don't think he's going to be your X. I don't think he's going to be your number one. I think there's a lot of reasons why that probably is not a good idea, or you don't really want to be in that situation. But I think he could be a good role player.
Yeah, certainly something to look out for. Only 7 targets in the receiving game so far this year, 2 catches for 8 yards. I don't think that any of us are shocked at all that he's taken a back seat to these guys, but I do think the lack of time he's gotten, lack of opportunities he's gotten in the receiving game is a bit surprising. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Ravens do try and work him in a little bit, because as we were talking about at the top of the episode, some shakeup or something needs to happen. And hopefully it's just a matter of just more practice time with this offense and Lamar and a lot of these guys who are new, getting onto a better page and better cadence. But yeah, I am certainly unopposed to the Ravens trying to get some more out of Duvernay. And yeah, really excited to see Mitchell get some more work as a returner. Obviously, when he was drafted, when we signed him, he was undrafted. We were all really excited about his speed. We saw that in the preseason. He was exactly as we were all expecting. So, yeah, I mean, it really seems to me like the Ravens are going to need to get the ball in Mitchell's hands in some fashion, whether it's through kick returns, whether it's through screens or wheel routes in the offense. That's some speed that can really help this team in some format. So, yeah, really interesting call there. I wouldn't be shocked to see them try and get Duvernay a little more involved in the receiving game and ease Mitchell into a bigger special teams role. I could certainly see that being something that we see in the coming weeks.
Let's do some MVPs. I'm going to go last. I think there are so many to choose from. I'm very comfortable going last because I could talk about like 15 different guys here.
It's interesting, isn't it? We were saying we can talk about so many guys, and yet I feel like we started this show with so many negatives. But yeah, I think you're right. There were a lot of really good performances too. And I just got to give mine to someone we talked about just a little earlier ago. Justin Madubuike, huge game, the 2 sacks, the 4 quarterback hits, just disruptive all 4 quarters. Excellent game from him. You'll love to see it. He's having a great year, and this was the best game of the year to date for him.
Yeah, I think I'll probably stay on the defense as well. I think I'll give mine to Geno. I thought in terms of game flow, I think we probably didn't talk about it a whole lot here, but I felt that interception was very well timed. I think the Titans were kind of in a position where they might be able to crawl back a little bit, and he kind of put those plans to rest with that interception and a great return as well. So good job to Geno for continuing to make those plays.
For me, we didn't talk about him yet in the episode, and I won't let it slide. Patrick Queen, I think, had another stellar game. This is a game that made him some money too, I'm sure. Able to make some key stops on 3rd down and near the goal line of Malik Willis, who was scrambling around. And he just is so much better at tackling when he has someone dead to rights. Yes, he missed the tackle on the goal line situation. He was able to slip through, but it allowed the rest of the team to rally, and he finished. He got back up and he got that tackle. And I think Patrick Queen, we talk about every week how these inside linebackers, Patrick Queen, Roquan, savvy, great plays. I thought Patrick was exceptional. And I have one other MVP. My other MVP is my wife, because she let us switch around our recording schedule. We celebrated her birthday yesterday instead, so that we could do a really cool preview show. So what's next in the docket for you guys? We did a preview show with All-Pro former Lion safety Glover Quinn. So make sure to check that out in your feed later in the week. It'll be a cool interview. We gave us some really good insights on a big Lions matchup we have coming up at the bank. I think it's going to be one of the best games of the year. They're playing out of their minds, and I think it's not that big of a surprise. They were competitors last year. They were a feisty, up-and-coming team. No one believed in them. Now they have a little bit more talent, a little more grit, and they're playing great. So definitely recommend you see that episode later in the week. And where can you find out more? OneWinningPod.com, OneWinningPod at Twitter, OneWinningPod, Threads, very consistent. So we appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back later in the week to talk about them Lions. Go Ravens.